I always believed my family was strong. I'm 55 years old, and for over 3 decades, I've been married to my wife, Sophia, who's now 50. Together, we've built a life that I thought was as solid as they come. We have 2 sons, Jared, who's 28, and Nathan, who's 25. If you had asked me at any point, I would have proudly said that we raised them well, instilling values like honesty, loyalty, and the importance of family. Sophia and I always tried to be supportive parents. We weren't overly strict, but we set clear expectations. We made sure to be present for every school play, sports event, and graduation ceremony. Family dinners were a non-negotiable part of our routine, a tradition Sophia was adamant about keeping, no matter how hectic life became. Those dinners were a time for us to connect, to laugh, and to share stories about our day. Sure, there were moments of rivalry and competition, but it was always in good fun. Jared, being the older one, was naturally more disciplined and driven. He was the responsible son, the one who always set an example. Nathan, on the other hand, was more carefree, a bit of a dreamer, always looking for his next adventure. He was the kind of person who could walk into any room and make friends instantly. Despite their differences, the boys were close. I'd often find them staying up late, playing video games together, or debating over the latest movies and tech gadgets. There were minor arguments here and there, but nothing ever seemed serious enough to worry about. I took it as a sign that we had raised them to be not just brothers, but friends who could rely on each other. Sophia was truly the heart of our family. She had a way of making everyone feel seen and heard, always knowing the right thing to say. She was the one who held us together, organizing family outings, planning birthday celebrations, and making sure every holiday was special. Her warmth and dedication made our home a place of comfort and love. For years, I believed we had a picture-perfect family. We were the kind of family that laughed at old jokes, shared meals together, and had each other's backs. There were no major dramas, no hidden tensions, at least not that I could see. I guess I was a bit naive, thinking that the good times would just keep rolling, that the bonds we'd built would remain unbreakable. Jared and Nathan were now adults, finding their way in the world. They both had stable jobs and were focused on their futures. As parents, Sophia and I were proud, feeling like we had done our part in raising them. Our life seemed simple, even predictable, but in a comforting way. We were content, enjoying the small moments that made up our daily lives. But looking back, I can't help but wonder if there were signs I missed, cracks in the foundation I was too blind to see. I was always an optimist, the type who believed that as long as we were together, nothing could truly go wrong. But life has a way of surprising you, of throwing things at you that you never saw coming. For now, though, everything seemed fine. We were just an ordinary family living an ordinary life, completely unaware of the storm that was quietly brewing on the horizon. Everything seemed fine in our family, at least on the surface. My wife, Sophia, and I were proud parents of our 2 grown sons, Jared and Nathan. Life felt steady, predictable, and I was confident we had raised them with the right values. But then, something happened that shook the very foundation of our family, something I never saw coming. Jared was always the more serious of the 2, the one who seemed to have everything planned out. When he was in college, he met a girl named Haley. She was his first serious girlfriend, and for a while, we were happy for him. Sophia and I were just glad that he had found someone who seemed to make him happy. Haley was often around for family gatherings, dinners, and holidays. She was polite, charming even, and fit right in. For over 4 years, they were inseparable. They talked about their future together, and we all thought that maybe one day we'd be welcoming Haley as an official part of our family. Then, out of nowhere, Jared broke up with Haley. It happened so suddenly that it took all of us by surprise. He didn't give us much of an explanation, just said that it wasn't working out anymore. I remember Sophia trying to comfort him, asking if he was okay, if there was anything he wanted to talk about, but he always shrugged it off. "It's for the best," he'd say, without much emotion. I could tell he was hurting, but he was too proud to let us in. At the time, I just assumed it was one of those things that young couples go through, a heartbreak that he would eventually move on from. We didn't pry because we trusted him. Little did I know, There was a lot more to the story than Jared was willing to share. Months turned into years, and Jared seemed to move on with his life. He focused on his career, and though he dated casually, he never brought anyone serious home after Haley. I thought he was just being cautious, maybe a bit gun-shy after a long relationship, and I respected his decision to take his time. Meanwhile, Nathan was living his life with his usual carefree attitude, dating here and there but never anything serious. Or so we thought. One evening, Nathan came home with a big announcement. He walked into the living room with a wide grin, holding the hand of a woman I hadn't seen in years. It was Haley. At first, I was stunned, unable to process what I was seeing. It was like a punch to the gut. Sophia and I exchanged confused glances, and I could tell she was just as shocked as I was. Nathan, however, seemed oblivious to the tension in the room. With the same enthusiasm, he announced, "Mom, Dad, I want you to meet my fiancée, Haley." The room fell silent. I looked over at Jared, who was sitting on the other side of the room, his expression completely unreadable. For a moment, I thought maybe he already knew, that he was somehow okay with this strange turn of events. But then, his face hardened, and I could see the pain flash in his eyes. Nathan must have noticed it too because he quickly added, "Jared knows. He's cool with it." That was the beginning of everything unraveling. I was still reeling from the shock, trying to understand how Nathan could do something like this. How could he date, let alone get engaged to, his brother's ex? It felt wrong on so many levels, but I wanted to believe Nathan's words, that somehow, Jared was okay with it. But when I looked at Jared, I knew that wasn't true. Later that evening, I pulled Jared aside. I needed to know if what Nathan said was true, if he had really given his blessing for this bizarre engagement. Jared's reaction was one of anger, betrayal, and deep hurt that he could barely contain. That's when he finally opened up about what had really happened years ago. He told me that the real reason he broke up with Haley was because she had cheated on him. And the person she cheated with? It was Nathan. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Jared had kept this secret for years, bottling up all the pain and betrayal, never letting on that his own brother had been the one to stab him in the back. He said he found out one night when he came home early from work. He caught Haley in a compromising position with Nathan. That's why their relationship had ended so abruptly. But instead of confronting them, Jared chose to end things quietly. He didn't want to tear our family apart, so he kept the betrayal to himself. The weight of this revelation was crushing. I felt my heart break for Jared. He had been carrying this burden alone, all to protect a family that clearly didn't deserve his loyalty. And Nathan? I couldn't even look at him the same way. How could he betray his own brother like that, then have the audacity to bring Haley back into our lives and expect us to be happy for them? The next few days were tense, to say the least. Sophia and I were caught in the middle, trying to process everything. Jared was distant, barely speaking to any of us. Nathan, on the other hand, acted like nothing was wrong. He kept insisting that he and Haley were in love, that Jared had forgiven them, and that it was time for all of us to move on. But there was no moving on from this. Our family was broken, and I didn't know if it could ever be fixed. The hardest part was realizing that the bond one thought we had as a family was nothing more than an illusion. I always believed we were strong, that we could get through anything together. But now, it felt like everything we had built was based on lies and betrayal. I had lost faith in the very foundation of our family. And as much as I wanted to believe that we could somehow heal, deep down, I knew things would never be the same again. The days following Jared's revelation were some of the darkest times our family had ever faced. The truth about Nathan and Haley's betrayal hung over us like a storm cloud that just wouldn't dissipate. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, one where everything I thought I knew about my family had been shattered. Sophia, my wife, was taking it even harder. She couldn't understand how the son we had raised, the one we thought we knew so well, could do something so cruel and heartless to his own brother. We tried to talk to Nathan, to make him see the damage he had done. But he was defensive, even angry, accusing us of taking Jared's side without listening to his. He insisted that he and Haley were truly in love, that their relationship had nothing to do with Jared and everything to do with their own connection. But I couldn't see it that way. To me, It was nothing but betrayal, plain and simple. Things reached a boiling point one evening. Nathan came home, his face flushed with excitement, and announced that he and Haley were planning to get married soon. He acted as if everything was normal, as if the pain he had caused Jared could just be brushed aside like it never happened. He even had the audacity to invite us to their wedding, expecting us to celebrate with them like a happy family. Sophia's reaction was immediate and fierce. I had never seen her so angry. She stood up, her voice shaking with rage, and told Nathan that there was no way we would support his marriage to Haley. "You've betrayed your brother and torn this family apart," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "If you think we're going to stand by and pretend everything is fine, you're wrong." Nathan, clearly taken aback by his mother's fury, tried to argue, accusing us of favoritism. "You've always loved Jared more," he shouted, his voice breaking. "You never supported me the way you did him. You're just using this as an excuse to cut me out of your lives." But Sophia was done with his excuses. She turned her back on him, telling him that if he wanted to marry Haley, he would have to do it without our blessing. What happened next was even more heartbreaking. That same night, Sophia began packing up Nathan's belongings. She went into his room, methodically pulling his clothes from the closet, gathering everything he owned into bags. I watched in silence, my heart heavy, knowing there was nothing I could do to stop her. When Nathan tried to intervene, to plead with her to stop, she turned on him with a coldness I had never seen before. "If you want to be with Haley so badly," she said, her voice icy, "then go. But don't expect us to be a part of your life anymore." The next morning, Nathan left our home with nothing but the bags Sophia had packed for him. He was furious, shouting that we were abandoning him, that we were choosing Jared over him. But as much as it pained me to see him go, I knew we had to stand firm. What he did was unforgivable, and supporting his marriage to Haley would only be a betrayal to Jared all over again. It seemed like the worst was behind us, but the drama was far from over. Nathan, stubborn as ever, was determined to go through with his wedding to Haley. Without our support, he decided to use his college fund, the one his grandfather had set up for him years ago, to finance the wedding. This fund was a substantial amount of money that his grandfather had saved for him, intended to help him build a future, not destroy our family. Nathan contacted his grandfather, our family's patriarch, and tried to convince him to release the funds. He spun a sob story about how we, his parents, had disowned him, how we were punishing him for falling in love, and how he needed the money to start his new life. For a moment, I worried that his grandfather might actually fall for it. He had always had a soft spot for Nathan, his youngest grandson, and Nathan knew exactly how to tug at his heartstrings. But what Nathan didn't anticipate was Jared finally breaking his silence. Jared, who had been quietly suffering all this time, decided he couldn't let his brother get away with his lies any longer. He called his grandfather and told him everything about the betrayal, about Haley cheating on him with Nathan, about how Nathan had knowingly hurt his own brother for his own selfish desires. When the truth came out, Nathan's plan fell apart. His grandfather, furious and heartbroken over the betrayal, refused to give him a single penny. He told Nathan that he would not fund his wedding, especially not to a woman who had already torn our family apart. Instead, he decided to redirect the money to Jared as a gesture of support for the pain he had endured. Jared was reluctant to accept it at first, but our family insisted. It was the least we could do after everything he had been through. Nathan was livid when he found out. He came storming back into our lives, demanding to know why he was being punished, why everyone was turning against him. He accused us of trying to ruin his happiness, of conspiring with Jared to destroy his future. But by then, none of us had any sympathy left for him. His choices had consequences, and now he was finally facing them. The fallout was devastating. Nathan cut off all contact with us, blaming everyone but himself for the mess he had created. He went ahead with the wedding, though it was a much smaller affair than he had originally planned, without the lavish expenses he had hoped his grandfather's money would cover. He didn't invite any of us, and honestly, none of us would have gone even if he had. As for Jared, he was deeply hurt but slowly began to heal. The support from his grandfather, the love from his mother and me, and the understanding that he was the victim in all of this helped him find some semblance of peace. He eventually moved on, focusing on his career and rebuilding his life. I only wish that Nathan could have found a way to make amends, but as it stands, he remains estranged from our family, choosing his pride and his relationship with Haley over the family that once loved him unconditionally. This was a chapter in our lives that I never expected, a betrayal so deep that it left scars on all of us. It's hard to look back and understand how we ended up here, how two brothers who were once so close could end up so torn apart. I still hold out hope that one day, Nathan will realize the damage he's done, that he will come back to us, ready to apologize, ready to make things right. But until then, we are left with the broken pieces of what used to be our family, trying to move forward one day at a time. As the dust settled from the chaos Nathan had unleashed, our family was left in a state of disarray. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now echoed with a hollow silence. Sophia and I were grappling with the reality that we had lost a son, not in the literal sense, but in a way that felt just as painful. Nathan's betrayal had carved a rift so deep that it seemed impossible to bridge. There were days when I would sit in the living room, staring at old family photos, wondering how we got here. How did our family, which we thought was built on a foundation of love and trust, crumble so quickly? Sophia, ever the strong one, tried to move forward. She poured her energy into supporting Jared, who was still reeling from the double betrayal. He had lost not just a girlfriend but also a brother. The pain in his eyes was something I would never forget. It broke my heart to see him so guarded, so wary of letting anyone get too close again. Jared was always the one with the kind heart, the one who believed the best in people. But now, he had built walls around himself, and I couldn't blame him. Nathan, on the other hand, had become a ghost in our lives. After being cut off from the family, he stopped reaching out entirely. There were no phone calls, no messages, not even a sign that he missed us. It was as if he had chosen to erase us from his life, just as we had been forced to erase him from ours. I would be lying if I said it didn't hurt. No parent ever dreams of disowning their child. But what choice did we have? Nathan had made his decision, and now he had to live with it. The nights were the hardest for Sophia. I would often find her sitting at the kitchen table, staring into her cup of tea, lost in thought. She never spoke about Nathan, never asked about him, but I knew he was always on her mind. A mother's love is a powerful thing, and no matter what he had done, she still worried about him. But her pride, her anger, and her sense of betrayal kept her from reaching out. And I knew that as much as she wanted to forgive, she couldn't forget the pain he had caused us all. As for me, I was stuck in a constant state of conflict. I missed my son, the boy I had raised, the boy I thought I knew. But every time I thought about reaching out to him, I remembered the look on Jared's face when he found out the truth. I remembered the countless nights Sophia cried herself to sleep, the sense of betrayal that lingered in every corner of our home. It was a pain I couldn't just sweep under the rug. So, I stayed silent, hoping that one day Nathan would come to his senses and realize the damage he had done. The extended family was divided on the issue. Some thought we were too harsh, that we should have been more forgiving, that family should always come first. Others stood by our decision, understanding that some betrayals were too deep to simply forgive and forget. It became a topic of gossip during family gatherings, and slowly, we began to distance ourselves from those who couldn't understand our pain. Sophia and I decided that we would rather have a smaller, loyal circle than be surrounded by those who judged us for protecting Jared. Jared, for his part, was slowly starting to heal. The support from his grandfather, the redirected college fund, and the emotional backing from Sophia and me gave him the strength to move forward. He decided to take a break from relationships, focusing on his career and his passions. We encouraged him to take his time, to rediscover himself, and to trust again, even if it was a slow process. Seeing him gradually come back to life was the only solace in this entire ordeal. But no matter how much we tried to move forward, Nathan's absence was a constant reminder of the fractured state of our family. Holidays were especially painful. I would find myself setting the table, instinctively leaving an extra plate for Nathan before realizing that he wouldn't be joining us. It was a small, yet significant, reminder of the void he had left behind. Sophia and I would occasionally receive updates from mutual friends or extended family members who had stayed in touch with Nathan. They would tell us that he had married Haley in a small, private ceremony, that they were trying to build a life together despite the chaos they had caused. But there was always a hint of sadness in these updates, a subtle indication that Nathan wasn't as happy as he had claimed he would be. Perhaps it was the weight of his choices, the realization that in choosing Haley, he had lost his entire family. Despite everything, I still hold on to a small glimmer of hope that one day, Nathan will come back to us, that he will realize the pain he caused and seek forgiveness. But I also know that forgiveness is a two-way street. It requires both parties to acknowledge their pain, to confront the past, and to be willing to heal. And as of now, I don't think any of us are ready for that. The wounds are still too fresh, the betrayal too deep. As parents, we are left with the difficult task of balancing love and principles. We love both our sons, but we cannot condone betrayal. Jared deserved our support, especially after everything he went through. But that doesn't mean we don't miss Nathan. It's a complicated web of emotions: love, anger, sadness, and a lingering sense of what could have been. I often think back to the days when our family was whole, when Nathan and Jared would play together in the backyard, their laughter echoing through the house. I never imagined that we would end up here, so divided, so broken. And yet, this is our reality now. A family torn apart by betrayal, trying to pick up the pieces and move forward. In the end, I've come to accept that some scars never fully heal. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the sense of loss, they are all a part of our story now. But as painful as it is, I still hold on to the belief that families, even broken ones, can find a way to heal. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. Until then, we have each other, and for now, that will have to be enough.